Are ready to get started. Thank you everyone for joining us in the rooms and over Zoom. We appreciate you being here and learning more about what we have today for my career story. My name is Nicole Lewis, and I am a career readiness coordinator at Heartland Workforce Solutions. And so myself, along with my two coworkers, Stan and Jasmine, help to put on these monthly my career stories, where we ask someone in the community to come and speak about their journey of how their career started, where it's going, accomplishments, obstacles, barriers, and really how the journey has been along the way. And it's interesting that we found that most people where they start and what they envision them ending up at, it's not been the case at all. And so it's a great networking tool that we have with these stories. And the woman who is here today is a part of the HWS board. Her name is Patricia Kearns. So I'm going to share a brief bio of her and then we will get it started. Patricia Kearns, a native of Western Nebraska, completed her undergraduate education at Doane College and received her master's degree in physical therapy from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. After practicing in both Nebraska and Arizona, Ms. Kearns joined QLI in 2001 as a physical therapist. Patricia's leadership style and relentless drive for clinical success quickly led her to several promotions, including coordinator of therapy services, director of clinical services, and vice president of clinical services. In January of 2011, Patricia was named president and CEO of QLI. Patricia oversees a continuum of QLI services that includes 185 private rooms across 4 levels of care, over 450 mission-focused employees, and $75 million of unique facilities on a beautiful 65-acre campus here in Omaha, Nebraska. Patricia and her team serve individuals from across the nation and are proud to serve some of our most severely injured servicemen. Additionally, QLI has been recognized as a best place to work in Omaha 7 times, the best place to work for the advancement of women, which is awesome, and has received 2 Sustained Excellence Awards. Patricia and her husband, Jeremy, their daughter, Carson, and their dog, Roxy, live in Omaha. So I will now pass it over to Patricia. She'll speak a little bit, and then we'll have time for questions at the end.
Thanks, Nicole and team, for having me today. I know you all have had some amazing presenters over the past couple of months, so those are tough acts to follow. So I'll do my best, but I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit with all of you, and lots of familiar faces I know in the room. So thanks for being here. I have the best job in the world. QLI, we kind of consider ourselves the Disney World of healthcare. Even though we're serving individuals who have been through really terrible tragedies, their life has been changed significantly after a car accident or fall, or some sort of catastrophic injury has occurred in their life. It's really changed the trajectory of their path and impacted their entire family unit. Hard stuff for sure. But I get to be part of a team, and in our little bubble in North Omaha, we've been able to create this community that's filled with hope and optimism. As you can imagine, that hope and optimism are important for the clients and the families we serve, so that they can get back on a meaningful path in life. But it's ended up that hope and optimism is just as important for all of our team members, including me, as we're navigating our paths in life as well. So QLI has really become a community where you get to show up every day and be yourself and have a high sense of belonging, and you're surrounded by people who are invested in you. And I'm really, really lucky to be a part of that. So I would start by saying that the job that I have now as the President CEO of QLI is not the job I dreamed about growing up. And the reason I didn't dream about that is because it's not something I ever thought I was capable of doing. I didn't think that that was something. I admired people who were leaders, and people I saw on TV or people I saw in my community, but because of my circumstances growing up, I thought, gosh, that's not something I'll be able to do. So I grew up in a really small town. I'll give you just a little background that sets the stage for that. I grew up in a small community in Western Nebraska called Borden. I had 46 people in my graduating class. For any of you who grew up in Omaha, usually the response is like, geez, that's really small. So maybe there are some of you that grew grew up in small towns and can relate though. But grew up in a small community. It was a lovely community, but nobody in my family had been to college prior to that. So college and really thinking about a career path wasn't on my radar really. My dad worked for the local public power district, and just a quick story that shapes me a little bit because he knew the cost of electricity. He put a wood burning stove in our house, and that kind of drove a lot of my activities through the year in the summer. And I should say that I'm the oldest of three girls. My dad wanted a boy, but didn't have a boy. So as the oldest of three girls, he decided, well, you're going to have to do anything that I think a boy could do, which served me well later in life. But that meant we heated our house with a wood burning stove in the winter. So in the summer, we would get up early on the weekends and go chop wood. In the winter, we would have to haul wood into our house to feed the wood burning stove and heat our house. And so I started doing that at a young age. As I got older, my middle school and my high school years, and found my voice, I would tell my dad early on a Saturday morning in the summer or winter, Dad, I do not want to go chop wood or haul wood into the house. And his line for me, every time I didn't want to do something that was hard work early in the morning when it was cold, when it was hot, was it builds character. You're going to do it anyway. It builds character. About the time I was 16, I was really sick and tired of hearing that it builds character, but it shaped my work ethic and really has served me well later in life. But the first time that college really came on my radar, I remember was when I was in 7th grade. I had two really influential people in my life at that age, a math teacher, my junior high math teacher, and my junior high track coach. And those two individuals were the people who I remember believing in me and expressing that out loud. Hey, I think you have skill sets in math or on the track. I think you have skill sets, and if you apply this, we believe you can accomplish something. So I vividly remember those feelings of someone believing in me, and then in turn, someone giving me an opportunity to accomplish something, to excel in math or to win a gold medal, out on the track. And with those accomplishments, though, came the important precursor of preparation and practice. So somebody believing in me, teaching me how to prepare, how to practice, how to develop and hone skill sets, to work hard to do that. And then that sense of accomplishment at the end, which I really, really like that feeling. And so they started planting seeds about developing a career and going to college, which then kind of fueled my interest to say, gosh, what am I going to do after high school? About the time of my sophomore year, then fast forward, and I started to think about, okay, I want to go to college. I need to figure out how to get there. How am I going to pay for this? Because my family wasn't in a position to do that. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do so I can really make the most out of that time if I'm paying for this out of my own pocket. And my sophomore year of high school, there was a former graduate from my high school that had finished her physical therapy degree, and she moved home to Borden and she opened her own business. And it was the first time that I had known in our community a female who had started and ran her own business. She was a basketball star. She'd been in Miss Nebraska when she was in high school, and I thought she was the coolest person ever, and I wanted to be her. And so that set me on a path to say, I want to be a physical therapist. When I grow up, I want to do what she's doing. I had been really involved in sports in a small town. You're involved in everything in a small town. You need everybody to be involved in everything. So there's enough people to make up a volleyball and basketball team and have a track team and all of that. And so, but I knew I was not going to be a professional athlete. That was not going to be my career path. And so physical therapy was also going to give me a way to maybe stay involved in athletics. So I worked hard. I got academic and sports scholarships actually in volleyball, not in track, and ended up going to Doane College in Crete, Nebraska. If anybody knows where that is. Okay. Yeah, it's a small school. And, I came from a small town of about 2,500 people. And I think Doane in total had just hit 1,000 students when I moved there. So there was something safe compared to maybe going to UNL or coming to Omaha right away, something kind of safe about that school. And it ended up being a good home for me. Again, I paid my way through college and wanted to be really intentional and efficient. Not that I didn't ever make my way to parties or anything like that in college, but I tried to be really well behaved because I knew I needed to take a lot of credits, get through as quickly as I could. And I had discovered, knowing that I needed wanted my next step to be grad school in the area of physical therapy. I had my eye on the University of Nebraska Medical Center here in Omaha. And they were one of the only programs that you could apply to after your junior year of undergrad. So I could skip a year of undergrad, which is a little more cost efficient, go 3 years, apply and get in. And so I worked hard to position myself so I could apply after my junior year. When I applied, I actually didn't get in the first time. I got put on the alternate list. And that was one of my first early experiences. Whether failure or whatever, but it was one of my first experiences of not, getting exactly what I had set out to do, which was a really good experience. So long story short, though, I ended up getting off the alternate list and getting into school. And I was able to start at the University of Nebraska Medical Center in their graduate program for physical therapy. So I moved from Gordon to Crete, Nebraska to Omaha for the first time when I was 21 years old. And going to the med center and grad school was a really hard experience for me. I had made my way through memorizing in all of my classes and getting A's and getting the GPA and needed to get into school. But when I hit grad school to start actually learning for my profession, I realized that I had never developed the skills to learn. I developed skills to memorize, to regurgitate things. I aced all my history tests and dates and things that way. But I had never really learned how to take in information that I could apply then and really learn the information. And so I was one of the only students too who was, in addition to going to grad school, most students don't work during that process. I had to pay rent and make my car payment and was helping support my family on the back end as well. And so I was trying to juggle work, not being a really skilled at learning yet and juggle that first year of classes, gross anatomy and everything that was involved. And so I got to the end of my first year of grad school and almost failed one of my classes at the end of that first year. And it was a really good wake up call. And I share that because I think having places of failure or adversity along the way have been really important for me to step back and say, okay, I need to learn, I need to ask for help and find a different way forward. So I almost failed one of my classes, which would have set me back a year financially, not something I could afford to do. So it really pushed me to buckle down, to refocus and to figure out how to ask for help. I was lucky to be part of an education program that the professors were really invested in our success and willing to navigate whatever our challenges were to help us navigate that. So made it through school. I told you sports was really important to me. So after school, I graduated, passed, wasn't the top of my class, but I passed, got my physical therapy degree, and I passed my boards, which was really important for me to end up having my license. And I found myself in a place that I knew I wanted to stay connected to sports, but I'm a bit of a planner. So I planned through high school, I planned through undergrad, I planned through grad school, I had my degree and thought, gosh, now what do I want to do? I really planned beyond this. So the job market was a little tough for physical therapists at the time, as it happens to ebb and flow, I'm sure, in every industry, healthcare particularly. So I decided I'm a born and raised Nebraska girl. I'm going to get the heck out of here and go to Phoenix, Arizona, somewhere sunny, take an adventure and get a job. So I packed up everything that could fit in my little red two-door Sunfire, made my way to Phoenix. Took me about 6 weeks to find a job, but landed a job at a private practice clinic that gave me a chance to do orthopedic focused physical therapy and sports medicine. I was there for about 2 years and it was a really interesting experience for me. I had a chance to meet Mike Tyson along the way, a lot of professional and college athletes, that were playing at the time. Mike was a highlight for me. It was really brief, but such an interesting character. But our physical therapy clinic was right next to some of the orthopedic physician offices. So we get called into the offices when they were consulting and some of the docs were hand doctors. So Mike had broke his hand, needed surgery. One of the docs there happened to do his surgery, so it was fun to get called in and consult on that case. I offered absolutely no value. I had only been out of school for a year, so I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but it was a really cool experience. So I find myself in Phoenix as a physical therapist doing sports medicine and orthopedics and working with professional college athletes. It's like supposed to be your dream job. So I was supposed to be living in sunny Arizona, a really cool city, doing what is supposed to be my dream job. And I remember kind of getting to the end of those first 2 years, feeling kind of this gap, this hole of like, I don't dislike what I'm doing. I'm having some cool experiences. I got to meet Mike Tyson, getting to meet all these cool athletes. But there's a big void for me. There's something I am missing. The owner of our clinic had just moved away to Virginia. She wasn't around a lot. I ended up practicing in the clinic by myself a lot, so I wasn't really surrounded by other people. I'm an introvert, so I would have thought that that would have been okay. Again, if you look at all these things on paper, this should be kind of perfect for me. But I had just enough, like, I'm missing something here. I don't know what it is, that I found myself looking for jobs. And right at the time that I happened to be thinking about another job, another opportunity, really in the Phoenix area, I decided to travel back to Omaha. My sister was living here and working at Union Pacific. There was a conference, a physical therapy conference in Omaha. So it was a way for my company to pay me to come to the conference, and I would get to come back to Omaha and see my sister. So I came home for a weekend. It was in the middle of winter. I remember that. It was snowing. It was freezing. I'd lived in Phoenix for 2 years. Your blood thins really quickly. You get used to, like, bundling up when it's 50 degrees. You think that's cold all of a sudden. But I had made my way back to Omaha for the weekend. And at that conference, I had a chance to meet somebody who had worked for QLI, who was working for QLI as a physical therapist. I had never heard of QLI. We did a lot of our clinicals at Emmanuel Hospital, which is right across the street from QLI. But apparently in all the times I'd driven to Emmanuel, I never looked south across the street to pay attention to what all those red brick buildings were. So I meet this physical therapist who's part of my conference, and she overhears me telling one of my former classmates that, like, yeah, looking at a new opportunity, maybe someday I'll move back to Nebraska. And QLI happened to be hiring at the time. So after overhearing my conversation, she jumps in and says, you've got to come to QLI, you've got to come to visit. She was so enthusiastic about her job and about QLI. I thought she was one of the strangest people I had ever met. I had never met anybody that loved work as much as this person did. So I said, thanks, no thanks. I'm living in Phoenix. It's snowing here. It's freezing. I can't do this for a while. And she was persistent throughout the rest of the conference. Ended up actually waiting for me outside the restrooms at one point and said, no, really, please, you have to come visit QLI. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to visit QLI. So before my plane left on Monday, I stopped at QLI's campus, and I couldn't put words to it at the time. But the energy of the place, everybody was smiling. These are people who've been through devastating injuries, and the clients there, the families, the team members. I knew the work had to be hard, but the team members, everybody was smiling, and there was this energy. And I kind of at the time instinctively knew that even though I didn't have words for all the things I was missing at my current job, despite everything looking perfect on paper, I could feel that here. So I was lucky enough that I got a call from the CEO the next week, a job offer. It was a terrible pay cut. It was an $8,000 pay cut. And I had all kinds of student loans. And again, supporting my way, helping support my family. I remember telling him on the phone, like, I can't afford to do that. I can't even afford to move back at that number. And so anyway, for whatever reason, it would be the worst advice I'd probably give to anybody who was looking for a job. But for whatever reason, I kind of instinctively thought, I got to try it. I have to go and try it for a year. So I moved back to Omaha. I didn't have enough money to rent my own apartment, so I slept on my sister's couch. It was really nice of her to let me sleep on her couch for a year as I was kind of getting back on my feet and started my career at QLI as a physical therapist. And at that time, when I came to QLI, this is 22 years ago, the company was about 11 years old. And as an organization that tends to do things a little bit differently than any other organization in the healthcare space and in the brain injury, spinal cord injury space does, that can create changes and challenges trying to convince people at the state of Nebraska, our Medicaid funding sources, that even though we're different, there's value here and we need you to handle our contracts differently. We were growing at the time and bringing on new funding sources, bringing clients from outside of Omaha, from further away. So we were going through lots of changes. And it ended up being, at the time that I started, a little chaotic because of all the changes. Kim was our founding CEO, making some leadership changes. But in addition to a little chaos, a lot of opportunity. And so from my childhood, all those things I didn't like to do, getting up early and chopping wood and hauling wood, that created a work ethic and helped me kind of navigate hard things. That feeling I had at QLI from what I was missing when I was working in Phoenix, and knowing that I wanted to be part of something that was bigger than me. Those things kind of all came together, and in the midst of those changes, I had this opportunity to say, yeah, I didn't learn that in physical therapy school, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to jump in and help. We're navigating funding sources, we're navigating new structure. I had a chance for the first time to be put into a leadership role, which was terrifying for me. So I've been there about a year. And Kim says, do you want to be the coordinator of the physical and occupational therapy department? And I immediately flashed back to this one management class I had when I was in graduate school, and walking out of that class saying, oh geez, no, I don't ever want to supervise people. That sounds terrible. Please, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be any good at it. I'm a clinician. I just want to serve the people who are here, with injuries. And so I said yes, though, anyway, rolled up my sleeves, and in addition to still learning how to be a clinician in a space I had not practiced before, started learning leadership skills, management being a part of leadership, but leadership being something that I actually ended up being really passionate about. I think of management as this process of keeping the trains running on time, which is important, dealing with the things that are hard and not so fun at times, which is important too. But leadership is this opportunity to inspire people and to bring the best out in people, to help people realize their path at work and in life. And once I discovered that and had a chance to start building some skill sets around it, I realized that, yes, as a clinician, I can serve about 6 people in any given day and help them recover and get back on a path in life. But as a leader of a team, I can lead a group of people and exponentially increase the amount of people I'm impacting clinically. And so I took on the role of coordinator because we were growing and changing. Our founding CEO had this incredible vision for our clinical model, for our culture. We were still a young company, still are technically 32 years old, but younger at that time. I had a chance to jump very quickly into the front line of saying, let's take this incredible vision that's now being supported by research on the clinical side from a neuroplasticity standpoint, from a culture standpoint and psychology standpoint as well. Let's take this vision, and I get to be part of helping build it, helping realize the vision and grow the program. So I eventually had an opportunity to step into a director and then a vice president role to oversee the clinical program and build out that vision and help us start making the transition from a mission standpoint to serving people with injuries from a local or regional standpoint to being able to serve individuals who needed our services from a national and international standpoint. And again, it was a heck of a lot of hard work because we were growing, we were putting processes in place, hiring people, building a pipeline of leaders to build out our program. But really an incredible opportunity over the course of 6 to 10 years doing that. Our founding CEO, who is a brilliant behavioral psychologist, if any of you have had a chance to meet Dr. Kim Hogeveen, was my mentor for 10 years and taught me so much, much like my math teacher and my track coach. He believed in me to do things that maybe I didn't always believe in myself to do, and created opportunities for me to, even if I failed and fell on my face, still created opportunities for me to learn and grow and had built this incredible environment where I had all these mentors and people around me that were invested in my success. We were all invested in each other's success. he decided to step down. I'd been at the company for 10 years and he decided he had a plan for a while. It was shocking to us at the time, but decided to say, no, QLI needs to live on, and for the company to live on, we have to get in a routine of passing the baton, starting with the top leadership position. And so we were terrified he was leaving. I was extra terrified when I got the phone call from him saying, hey, we want you to take on the CEO role. And again, flashback to that one management class I had in business school. I don't have my MBA. I don't have any, I haven't taken any business classes. All the leadership things I knew, I learned on the job at QLI, and I knew there was a lot that I still hadn't learned. I remember my first response saying, absolutely not, I can't do that job. So I'm good where I'm at leading the clinical program, but nobody ever says no to Kim. So after a while, he convinced me and I said, okay, I'll take on the job. And he told me at the time, he said, don't worry, you've been here 10 years, you've been running a huge part of the company in the clinical program. You understand marketing, a lot of the financials, the culture. And so 80% of the job, you only have to learn 20% of it. And I was like, okay, I can take that on. Well, within my first year of having the job, I realized he was absolutely wrong. I actually only knew 20% of the job and I had 80% to learn. So those first couple of years, again, back to failures and learning from mistakes. It's not about the mistakes, not about the failure, it's about how you get up from that, right? So I spent those couple of years making mistakes. And I remember at the end of my second year in this role, it was after a board meeting that hadn't gone as well as I wanted to. We have an amazing board, so they would never remember it this way. But I remember sitting in the parking lot thinking, who hired me for this job? I have no idea what I'm doing. I have so much to learn about so many aspects of the company. What the heck am I doing? And I got a text from our CFO, who's been a really good work partner for me, saying like, hey, I think I really let you down in that meeting. I could have done a better job. And I remember it hit me at the time from the perspective of, you know what, that's really incredible. I had made some mistakes. I hadn't prepared enough for that meeting. I hadn't prepared enough for the proposal we were putting in front of the board. There were things I needed to do differently. But wow, I'm surrounded by a team at every level who is invested in my success, obviously invested in the company. And I realized that the reason I was drowning at that time and that first couple of years had been so hard for me was because I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't reaching out to my team and letting them in. And that text message from our CFO saying, gosh, I should have done more, I could have done more, made me realize that I needed to bring people in. I needed support. I needed to reconnect to mentors. I needed to remind myself that it's okay to say, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. And that this is going to be a process. So I recommitted. I didn't quit my job. I thought about it for a hot second sitting in my car in the parking lot. But I didn't quit my job. It made me step back again and figure out mentors, prioritize the areas that I really needed to learn, find a plan of attack, because preparation and practice is the key to developing those skill sets. So I've been the CEO at QLI for about 12 years. I haven't been drowning after the first couple of years, but I will say the last 10 years have been a really, really, really incredible learning experience. For me, the past 3 years in particular, as I think everybody's experienced, it's one thing to learn skill sets and how to navigate challenges that have been experienced before by other people, right? It's a matter of saying, I need to reach out and ask questions and ask for support. And how did you navigate this when you experience this? That's one thing. It's a whole nother thing when they're experiencing challenges that nobody's ever dealt with before, that there isn't a playbook for. There isn't an easy phone call to say, like, what did you do in this situation? Just as important to have mentors and people around you to process those things. But the last 3 years have been really, our team, we had a leadership retreat last night and we were talking about, gosh, I don't know that I want to go through a pandemic again. Certainly with where the unemployment rate's been and navigating, getting all the team members we need, keeping all of our positions filled, we've been challenged at a greater level than we ever have before. Those are hard challenges to go through. But with each of those challenges, because of those challenges, we've come out better and stronger on the other side. It's forced us to say, okay, we get used to doing something a certain way for so long, and it's easy to get comfortable in that. Not necessarily complacent, but comfortable in that. And if we don't have those challenges coming at us, maybe we're not going to push ourselves to say, could we be doing this better? Could we be doing this differently? Is there an opportunity to grow from this? And so those challenges have really pushed us along the way to ask those questions, to think a little harder about what's the future of the services we're providing, how we're providing rehab, how we're providing long-term care, how we're navigating a culture that even though we're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, some extra challenges from an employment standpoint that we have to navigate. How can we recreate rehab and long-term care, embrace all of those unique things about our business and our industry to make us the best that we can be, to make sure that we can serve those clients and families even better than we're serving them today. So never a dull moment, never without opportunities to learn and to grow in this role. And I know my entire team would say the exact same thing. I think a couple of lessons I would share that I've talked about that I've learned along the way and hopefully pay forward to other people. But one is that you really can learn to do anything you're willing to work hard enough to do and willing to receive coaching for. That's been reinforced for me over again, obviously with what I've shared, but we're in the business at QLI of facilitating neuroplasticity after somebody's had an injury. Our process, especially brain injury, our process is figuring out how can we help their brain rewire to recover and redevelop skills. And when I finished physical therapy school back in 1999, the research around the brain's ability to adapt and to rewire was really in its infancy. And there wasn't a lot of buy-in to that research. So we thought that if somebody has an injury, what's done is done, and you have to learn how to compensate for those deficits. We know now that that's not true. Your brain's incredibly adaptable. It can rewire. And the good news about that, not only for the rehab world and the clients we serve, but the good news is for all of us, any of us really can learn to do anything we want to do. If you want to be a professional golfer and head out on the PGA Tour or WPGA Tour, that really is possible. But it requires a series of things to happen. Two critical ones, which are the work that has to get put in because you have to have repetition and lots of it, and the coaching and support you need to help you to learn how to do things and build those skill sets the right way. So it's one of the most amazing things that I think I've learned. And again, I by all standards, am not qualified to do the CEO job at QLI without an MBA or any sort of business degree or experience prior to that. But if I can do this job, I really believe, and this is the message to any of our team members coming in, really anybody can learn to do this job or any job that you want to do. So the other lesson that I really learned is just the power of believing in people. Back to that math teacher, that track coach, the physical therapist and business owner in town who let me spend a lot of time with her. She taught me a lot. Professors I had in school, and fast forward to the team I've had a chance to be a part of at QLI, having people who believe in you, especially when you don't always believe, maybe that you're capable of doing something, having somebody to give you that courage to say, you can't do this. And from a leadership standpoint, it's the incredible power that we have. We have this platform to believe in people, to help them see the possibilities if they're willing to put the work in and receive the coaching. So two really key lessons along the way for me that we work hard to pass along to other people. So I'll open it up for questions. I have no idea how long I talked, but we'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have to know, with the business Nebraska now, I can start morale.
Yes, Marlette is her last name, now married last name. Yes, absolutely. What a small world. That's awesome. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah, she was a fantastic role model. So, and I think spends more time farming now than practicing. Yeah, yeah.
So I've got a question, just kind of thinking back to that first opportunity to step into a leadership role. And lots of folks kind of run into that same opportunity and be like, okay, here I am as a practitioner, and now I have the chance to move into a management leadership role. Thinking back on that, what advice would you give people that are considering that and what they're taking on in that kind of management leadership capacity?
Yeah, a couple of things. Being proficient at being a great physical therapist has nothing to do with being a great leader. And I think it's one piece of advice is just remembering that, right? It's a whole separate set of skills that you really have to learn. So to be prepared for that. I think the other thing is when you're stepping into a leadership role, you're committing to the people that you serve on your team. You're committing to bringing the best out in them, and that takes extra time and energy. And so if you have that opportunity and you have that passion to see other people succeed, to help them grow, just to remember that you're probably going to have to find different strategies around where you use your energy. So our leaders at QLI are all really, really incredible. But as we've been navigating a number of the challenges, we've all had to spend some time. Work-life balance is not my favorite phrase because I think it can indicate that work is bad, and I love work so much. So work is part of my life. But I do acknowledge that that spending time for self-care, we talk about it, we frame it up in the form of recovery. I can identify if I'm training for a half marathon, I have days, especially after my long runs, that my muscles need to recover, right? And I don't feel guilty about those recovery days. I need that to happen. Sometimes it's active recovery. It doesn't mean I'm sitting on my couch and maybe doing something else, but recovery is important. And so for all of our leaders, because the time and energy it takes as you're investing in people to do that really well, you really have to be intentional about where you're spending energy and where you're finding time for recovery. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of other people in that process. So just understanding that the skill sets are different and being prepared to learn those, and understanding that the energy expenditure is probably a little bit higher too, and being prepared to place that and navigate your days and weeks and months in a way that honors that. Oh, great question. Yeah.
So you search for the former CEO in my role, prepared and maybe right person, well, now hindsight, I think we're a lot more prepared and extra in the moment.
I think I was incredibly underprepared for the role at the time, and which is okay. I think what he and the board had faith that I would do is that I would do whatever it takes to put any amount of work in to learn the role and build the skill sets. And I appreciate that now as we're selecting people for leadership positions, that I don't necessarily need somebody to have the skill sets or have all the knowledge to be able to do the job. But I need to make sure that, one, their values align, that they're going to see leadership as we see leadership. It's not power, it's not a title, it's really bringing the best out in people, that their values align with regard to their commitment to our mission. We have a series of 8 values that extend beyond that, being universal and collaborative and investing in others. But I need to make sure that their values align. And I need to make sure that they want to do it. Sometimes our young leaders, maybe they're just starting a new family, and committing that extra time and energy is not the right time for them. Or there's times that I want people to be a leader more than they want that, for themselves. So finding the balance of believing in people, maybe when they don't always believe in themselves, but not necessarily overly persuading or forcing somebody to do something that they're not ready to do. So my values aligned. And I was in a position to put the work and put the energy and put the time in. And that helped me navigate through that process. So So I have a planned transition with my board that I will be in this role for 2 more years and then we'll be transitioning out. I have no idea how much they appreciate me sharing that publicly, but they do know that I'm sharing that publicly. But I part of a planned transition that, after experiencing the transition I went through, we went through about a 6-month transition, which was good. And there's value in doing something shorter, value in doing something longer, depending on the situation. But we've decided that, I'm very forthcoming with my team about, and for the same reasons, I don't know what I'll do afterwards. I need to work, I need a job, I may be coming to some of you for help with that, but our goal is that QLI is 32 years old. We want it to see 100th anniversary someday. And so the company needs, and passionate about the mission and loyal to the mission and the team, the company needs to know that it can continue to move on well past any one person. And so we realized with Kim, our founding CEO, an amazing leader who built the company. But we figured out we could live on beyond him. So, and the team's going to live on beyond me. And so we have a planned transition. It's forced us to be really intentional about succession planning, not only for the CEO role, but for every role in the company. So, but I think we'll end up in the same position. Anybody coming into this role, which will come from within the company, will have a certain amount of skill sets until you actually do the job. It's really hard to know kind of where you're going to be and all those other skill sets you still need to learn. But if values align and it's the right time and somebody's really passionate and interested in taking that next step, it's going to work out. So, great question. What's next for me? It's a good question. And I think I'm navigating from a career journey. What I love to do, things I don't love as much. And, even taking on this role, I've learned a lot of skill sets around legislative processes and managing the lobbying process. I'm an introvert, but I'm our lead fundraiser. So that's been a good push for me and lead at, public relations. I'm a clinician at heart. I love the science behind what we do. My team's really gracious because every now and then I'll jump in on something clinically, even though they don't need me and probably don't want me involved in that process. They let me participate. So I've learned a lot of skill sets and I'm kind of navigating, as much as I love the clinical side and the science side of things, I am an introvert, but Omaha's been such an amazing community. And because I get to do PR and I get to do fundraising and legislative things, I've just met some of the most incredible people along the way. So finding the balance of, having those things involved in kind of my next step, while honoring being an introvert in recovery time, I need around that as well. So I really don't know. And, my heart's at QLI. I am so passionate about our mission, the people we serve, our culture. I have felt the need to honor, not thinking too far ahead and getting distracted from the work that I need to do day to day about that. But yeah, at 2 years now that it's 2 years out, it's real. And so in a year from now, I'll need to start probably thinking a little more seriously about that. So it's a good chance to self-reflect though on, who am I and what have I learned and how have I grown? So.
How would you suggest approaching one student mentor? That's such a close relationship and it's so insightful. It seems like it's a lot of pressure to choose the right one at once.
Yeah.
Do you kind of make them volunteer themselves for it, kind of fall into that relationship, or do you approach someone specifically for those positions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Excuse me. I have definitely had mentors that have kind of fallen into my lap. Being at QLI, I was particularly spoiled. Our CEO was my boss and was an incredible mentor. And so falling into that situation. And there are a number of other leaders at QLI that have been good mentors for me. So mentors are interesting from the perspective of, to your point, they're a close relationship. And so they need to be willing to mentor you and spend that time and be a person in your life that's encouraging and believes in you, but also honest with you and willing to tell you the things sometimes that you don't always want to hear. But while you can fall into that situation, they can't really choose you, you have to choose them. The time in my life when I wasn't growing and I was struggling were the times I realized that I had mentors around me, but I was closed to that. I wasn't willing to hear that, to seek that out. And so, so you really have to be the one in a position to say, yes, I'm open to the mentoring. Yes, I want to hear that from you, even if I don't like what I'm hearing all the time. The other interesting thing about mentors, and I'll get back to your answer that question very specifically, but the other interesting thing about mentors is who you need as a mentor changes over time, right? As you learn and grow, somebody who was a mentor at this point, he was an amazing mentor for me for 10 years, and he's still an amazing human being. He's not my key mentor right now as I've grown and targeted in on some other skill sets I need to learn. So your mentors you can have more than one mentor at any given time, and they should change over time as you continue to grow and develop. So I was lucky that I had a lot of mentors. Even when I took on the CEO role, there are a number of incredible female leaders in this community. A handful of them actually reached out to me and said, I don't think you know what you're doing, so please, let's have breakfast or lunch or spend some time, and I'm happy to be a resource for you. I was really, really lucky to have that. And I try to do that for people too. I'm not trying to be pushy, but I'm here if you need me, and I'm willing to support you however I can, however my skill sets align with what you're learning. So I had some incredible people that reached out to me, and then I had to learn along the way how to get more comfortable reaching out to other people. Can I set up time again, even if it's for coffee or for lunch? And the more people I've been able to get to know, the easier it's been to figure out where do I click with somebody based on kind of what I'm learning and how I'm growing right now. And can I dig into that a little bit more with somebody who's willing to spend that time? Maybe there was somebody I met a while back that as I'm learning, I can reconnect with and say, gosh, I really need to become more skilled and learn more. Can we start spending some time together? So putting yourself out there and getting to know a lot of people, I have found is the best way to kind of sort out who's going to click now or click later from that mentor role. So yeah, and mentoring when I always find when I set myself up to mentor somebody else, I get as much from that relationship as I give to. So a great strategy for learning, or has been for me. Yeah. Questions?
Not yet. No.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. Lots of familiar faces and fun to meet some new people. For anybody, I know some of you have been out to QLI, but for anybody who hasn't been out to QLI, the door's open, the gates are open, I should say. We're far enough into the pandemic, we can have visitors again, and we have some fun things going on. So we always welcome anyone stopping out to meet our team and see what we're doing out there. So thanks for all the great work that all of you are doing.
Right about the new apartments.
Yeah.
That sounds so.
Yeah, the Omaha World Herald, one of their writers, Kelsey Stewart, who is just incredible, came out a couple of weeks ago, and the Omaha World Story ran last Thursday morning, I believe, and she did such a nice job of showing those. So yeah, we have a pilot project. It's kind of the next phase of what we're thinking about with QLI. Certainly our funding sources are challenged. There's more need than there are dollars, out there, especially for individuals with catastrophic injuries, but technology presents this incredible opportunity. We spend a lot of time watching movies like Black Panther and Iron Man, and even things to be gleaned from the old Star Wars movies, but thinking ahead, Avatar is the other one that's high on our list right now, but thinking about how will robotics and avatars from digital experience standpoint, how it is going to change our whole world. It already is changing our world. But for us, how can that in a really positive way recreate how we do rehab and long-term care? We have an incredible long-term care facility as part of our continuum of care for individuals with really complex needs. And we would love for something, not just smart apartments, but smart communities, smart inclusive communities, to put our long-term care setting out of business. That would be amazing. It'd be amazing not to need facilities like that, because the people we serve, and we create a community for them, but we think it could look differently, and even better than we're doing it now. So yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. It's a fun story. So and if you have a chance to meet Kelsey, if anybody's looking for a story somewhere along the way, Kelsey's incredible. So
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you all once again for tuning in and those in the room. Our next My Career Story will be Wednesday, January 25th. Same time, same place over Zoom here at the Connect at the Highlander campus. And thank you so much, Patricia.
Yeah.
That was so great to learn.